A couple of slides to finish on testing. Honestly, this deserves a talk in its own right. I did sort of do one, but I have not referenced it. I've only just remembered this talk. PHP London 2 years ago, 2015. Yes, 2015, I did a talk called Delivering Faster with Story Player, where I talked about taking an API that was in trouble and a testing approach that helped me rescue it. Actually, March 2016, I think. I didn't video that talk, but they did. PHP London, so it'll be online somewhere. I haven't watched it. I don't know how embarrassing it is, but I recommend that as well. But all of this stuff is testable. I've talked about that several times, but I'm a great believer that you don't want one test approach. Your composer packages that you create, your individual components, absolutely write unit tests. The whole point of this code isolation is that all this stuff is entirely input driven and produces outputs. So it's very easy to write high quality unit tests for that aren't too expensive to write and don't rot badly over time. So absolutely do that. The glue code, your controller in particular, and sort of the whole end-to-end thing, I don't tend to write unit tests for those. They tend to be expensive to write unit tests for. The unit tests tend to rot quicker and require a lot of extra maintenance. I have a lot more success with doing end-to-end testing, actually stand the app up and actually feed it input as a user and get a response back. For the amount of time it takes, therefore the amount of money being spent on that work, this is often a better bang for buck. Ideally, you want both sets of coverage, but very few people will pay you to do that today. The rate of change and delivery is just too high, and we don't have enough people on projects to do it. Now, normally I'd recommend my own tool for the story player, which is explicitly built for it. However, I'm in the process of building version 3 of Story Player, and it will be radically different to version 2. So I don't want to recommend a tool where I know your tests are going to have a very limited shelf life. There are alternatives, and this is sort of flavour of the month. I don't know if any of you have used Postman before. For end-to-end testing, so you can't do, one thing Story Player does that nothing else does, it allows you to do deep inspection. Because you can get a response back, but you may not have actually saved the data in the database, for example. And Story Player is designed to give you multiple layers of inspection so you can prove everything's working. But Postman's will give you that end-to-end test. You can send a request, get a response back. And I believe you can actually generate documentation from your test suite.
You can do, so you can then pass it, you do a test call, you can then use that to actually spec out the documentation and also then retrieve what comes back and use that as the example response. So you can do things automated. Basically, you kind of feed Postman your API and it will then do the documentation for you. Depending on how well and strict your API is, it can get quite detailed with it, which is a huge time saver as well. And it is then hosted on Postman, which then means that you can then send it out to anybody almost instantaneously once your tests pass through Postman.
Which is really handy.
It also takes in Swagger. If you happen to generate Swagger anyway, you can just give them a link and we'll deal with that.
Are you all familiar with what Swagger is?
No, I'm just taking that out of context.
It's funnier. It's funnier out of context actually.
It's just a way of documenting APIs.
Documentation.
So, it comes with a nice UI thing, so you probably accidentally see it on some open source project at some point.
Potentially.
Where they kind of have a sidebar bit.
It's actually by default now. Swagger's enabled.
So these days it's not called Swagger, of course, it's called the Open API Spec. I don't use it because it's not 100% compatible with JSON schema. I can't remember the differences or how you mitigate it, but that's the reason I don't use it today. But it's a good thing to look at for the future. So that's my introduction to Zend Expressive for building APIs. What do you think?
Thank you. That was interesting.